Within storytelling, or even when just branding and marketing a movie, game, manga, or otherwise, having multiple protagonists can be a bit of a risk. After having built recognizability and a reputation with your audience with a single character for an extended period of time, suddenly tossing all of that out the window to start from scratch all over again with a completely new protagonist, bringing alongside them a new story with new personality, can be a shaky maneuver yielding unpredictable results. However, SNK's long-running fighting game franchise, The King of Fighters, is one of the few franchises to arguably pull this idea off and pull it off well. With its 4 different protagonists from its 4 different story arcs, being the Orochi Saga, the NESTS Saga, the Tales of Ash Saga, and the New Age or Verse Saga, KOF has managed to keep its characters consistent yet still fresh throughout each part of the series by switching out the protagonist in each of their new story arcs. But I thought it could make for a pretty interesting video today if we went ahead and ranked each of these 4 protagonists from these story arcs from weakest to strongest. This is a topic I've had on the table for a while and held off on, but with the 30th anniversary of the King of Fighters this month, there's no better time than now to go over these characters. For this video, however, I'm only going to be sticking to material and information given to us by the mainline King of Fighters games, or supplementary material that's canon and pertains to those games such as manuals or databooks, so not including any weird spin-off games or any other material like anime or manga, though we may talk a bit more about that later on. NESTS is a crime syndicate and terrorist organization looking to gain the power necessary for world domination through monitoring the King of Fighters tournaments alongside absorbing data and power from its participants. Using their advanced technology, NESTS has created an army of cybernetically enhanced super soldiers, but most notable of these efforts to forge a formidable fighting force has been the repeated cloning of Kyo Kusanagi, in the hopes of creating an army of warriors stronger than every other fighter in the world who would dare oppose them. From these efforts emerged K-Dash, a young man who lost his every remnant in memory of his past, only to have them replaced with his new singular purpose of serving as a puppet for NESTS. This placement may surprise a decent bit of you, but I promise it'll make more sense as we go further down the list with the context added by later placements. There unfortunately just isn't a whole lot to say or imply that K-Dash is above any of the other characters on this list, and if anything, there's more to say that he's outright beneath them to even a considerable degree. The major issues that stand out to me is that while K-Dash is intended to be a clone that rivals or goes beyond what Kyo should be capable of with his codename of He Who Surpasses K, it's confirmed that Iori is still Kyo's biggest rival today. And not only this, but from his introduction all the way back in the King of Fighters 99 to the new era of the King of Fighters 15, K-Dash still sports the red glove on his right hand that not only holds the power of his flames, but the glove also serves to protect himself from those flames that were created with the attempt to replicate Kyo's own flames, meaning that the flames Kyo himself utilizes and potentially someone more so relative to Kyo, like say the aforementioned Iori for example, possess power that exceeds K-Dash's own durability by quite a bit. This gets only worse for K-Dash when you consider that Kyo himself sometimes calls these flames out as mere imitations, and he, alongside other characters like Mature or Ash, are quick to point out that K-Dash has yet to properly control or master even these arguably weaker flames, with Ash in particular repeatedly stating as well that he has no interest in K-Dash despite taking interest, or in his words needing, Kyo and Iori for his dark endeavors. Another former associate of NESTS, Maxima, also believes that these sacred treasures, which basically includes the King of Fighters Sanin of Iori, Kyo, and Chizuru, to be in a league of their own in comparison to those who regularly participate in KOF. And this again would undoubtedly include K-Dash as well, considering that he and Maxima are partners entering on the same team in the King of Fighters tournaments regularly. When all is said and done, it's not really that K-Dash is weak per se, it's just more so that the characters following on this list are just so much more powerful with better statements and feats than him. If nothing else, Verse is a being that embodies the very concepts of anger, hatred, and the desire to simply destroy, containing within it the will and personality of multiple lost souls throughout the history of KOF, such as Ash Crimson, Chrysalid, Rugal, or even characters a part of the larger SNK mythos like Mizukira Shojin from the Samurai Showdown series. Shun'ei is a very weird character, and not necessarily in terms of qualities that stand out from a cursory glance like his design that's somehow meant to attract a female audience, but in terms of his power and abilities, which in part have origins that directly tie back to Verse, as it refers to Shun'ei as a fragment of itself. As a student of Tung Fu Ru who previously trained legendary fighters like Terry Bogard and Geese Howard, Shun'ei is now learning how to control this power, proving itself to be an arduous process despite the fact that his rival Isla demonstrates remarkable synchronization over her own phantom hands to the point that it's not far-fetched to claim that they are her only friends. Shun'ei having little control of his own power still inherently keeps him behind some of the more experienced warriors we see throughout the King of Fighters tournaments to some extent, but aside from that, we don't really see Shun'ei too much or have many matchups against other characters within the series to definitively place him here within this list. And this is sort of a fighting game thing in general, where aside from games like Mortal Kombat now having expansive story modes with canonical fights that have definitive winners, we are mostly led to believe that any character should be able to potentially beat any of the other characters, especially in the context of these big tournaments with fighters from all across the world and such, in order for the game to mostly make sense. But to me, there are a few things about Shun'ei that do stand out, mostly in the fact he reiterates time and time again that Kyo is the only one who should at all be able to handle his unrestricted power, which he says both in the King of Fighters 15 and The King of Fighters: A New Beginning. The King of Fighters: A New Beginning is a manga roughly covering the events of The King of Fighters 14, and while it's never directly stated to be canon, series director Yasuyuki Oda has gone on record saying various concepts of the manga stand to bring a huge influence on future SNK projects, which has proven to be the case by the fact the Ikari Warriors story for The King of Fighters 15 references Shun'ei going berserk in last year's tournament, which could only be referring to events in the manga since this does not take place within the King of Fighters 14 story mode. This instance of Shun'ei losing control is specifically referring to his fights against both Nightmare Geese as well as Ryo Sakazaki, who is able to keep a good pace with Shun'ei even while he himself is holding back and Shun'ei is letting all of his power loose. During this fight, Shun'ei once again proclaims that he initially believed Kyo was the only person who could handle this power, and while he does in fact lose this fight to Ryo, which would somewhat contradict this idea, Ryo himself has no anti-feats aside from admitting that he believes the sacred treasures are above him. I will admit there's nothing to say Shun'ei would be directly above K-Dash, however Shun'ei believing that Kyo is the only KOF participant who could take him using his full power, which has resulted in him holding back throughout KOF 15, paired with his opinion that the other sacred treasures are a good or tough fight for himself, leads me to the idea that he should naturally be stronger than K-Dash, but we may receive further information in the future to more so definitively come to that conclusion as the story continues to hype him up to one day be at the level of the sacred treasures. Over 1,000 years ago, there was a deity known as Orochi who sought a balance between the existence of both mankind and the nature that surrounds them. This balance could not be created, and thus Orochi sought to wipe out all of humanity to achieve this goal, drawing loyal followers to its cause and the strongest among them being known as the Hakushu. Before this crusade could reach its endpoint, however, Orochi and its followers were intercepted and defeated by the Yata, Yasukani, and Kusanagi clans, resulting in the deity itself being sealed until the modern age of today, where Orochi's followers, the Hakushu, have come together again, looking to revive the entity and resume their war against humans, the only ones capable of stopping them being the descendants of the three clans in the past who wield their ancestors' treasures today, one of those descendants being Kyo Kusanagi. Despite being a high school dropout and never really taking his responsibilities as one of the sacred treasures seriously, Kyo, as the protagonist of the Orochi Saga, is still undoubtedly powerful, and anyone familiar with the King of Fighters or that may have seen some of my previous videos covering characters like Kyo and Iori will certainly agree. Numerous statements throughout the Orochi Saga make it very clear that Kyo and the other sacred treasures are the only ones who can cease Orochi's followers' plans of its revival, with Shizuru saying the combined talents of both Kyo and Iori are needed to suppress or defeat Orochi, which would automatically put him above the other King of Fighters participants, but even today in the Verse Saga, he is still repeatedly implied to be above Shun'ei, who Kyo refers to as a rookie and who once again says that Kyo is the only one who he can really use his full power against within the confines of the King of Fighters tournament, again believing as well that the other sacred treasures alongside Kyo to be a good or tough fight. And though we've already been over how K-Dash doesn't necessarily compare to Kyo all that well considering the matchup of his fire against K-Dash's durability, Elizabeth maintains that it is integral for Kyo to become involved in putting a stop to Ash's plans, yet at the same time looks down upon K-Dash, saying that despite the power he possesses, he could never hold a candle to the sacred treasures. And Iori also adds that K-Dash isn't even fit to kneel before Kyo. Now Kyo's placement among the sacred treasures themselves is a topic in its own right, as although he and Iori are continuously portrayed to be rivals from Iori's first appearance on the Rivals team in the King of Fighters 95 to where the sacred treasures have reunited once again in the King of Fighters 15, this mostly applies to Iori and his base, but we'll get to that later. It's fairly clear that Kyo is up there in terms of the stronger King of Fighters participants, with the only people held in a similar tier to him being his occasional teammates and fellow treasures Iori and Shizuru, and though Shun'ei still has more room to grow, I feel it'll more than likely stay that way for a while. Those from the past, or those that follow the will of Gaia, are a group of individuals not too dissimilar to the Hakushu and those that worship Orochi, though the two factions are openly rivals that look down upon one another despite their seemingly shared ideals. But those from the past would run into trouble in said past when having to go up against the humans that oppose them, and as a result, the clan made it the new mission of Gaia's people to seek out the Gate, an artifact that could be used by those from the past to travel throughout time to rekindle their strength and rewrite history so that their enemies may be eradicated before they could ever pose any sort of legitimate threat. These efforts would be guided by the clan head, Psyche, but it is his descendant who would seek to put an end to the dark aims of those from the past, Ash Crimson. As with K-Dash, Ash having such a high spot up on this list may once again come as a shock to some of you given how little we see of him and the inherent mystery surrounding him as a result, but even the little we see is more than enough to grant him this spot. In his first appearance during the King of Fighters 2003 while the Sacred Treasures are inspecting the Orochi seal that Chizuru protects as its watcher, Ash somehow manages to appear from behind to steal Chizuru's Yata mirror for his own purposes, but he also demonstrates the capacity to react to an arguably blitz Iori as he makes his departure. This is already fairly impressive given the reputation of the Sacred Treasures we've previously discussed, but it does not end there. As in the game following, being the King of Fighters 11, Iori, Kyo, and Shingo forming a team in Chizuru's absence has unfortunately taken a turn for the worse, as Shingo is severely beaten while Kyo lay defeated on the ground after facing Iori in his Riot of the Blood form. Ash then appears once more, this time being able to tag the bloodlusted Orochi Iori and stealing his Yasakani jewel, granting him his flames. Iori should naturally be stronger than his base while in his Riot of the Blood state, but he would also outright be stronger than Kyo as well, considering that Kyo was beaten badly by this Iori, while normally the two are more so hyped up to be rivals to one another, with fights that repeatedly end in stalemates. Ash himself shares a similar rivalry to that of Kyo and Iori with his childhood friend Elizabeth Blandtorch, whose talents are stated to not be too far off from that of the Sacred Treasures, and despite witnessing Ash steal Iori's flames, she still directly challenges him and demands that he go all out when the two reunite in the King of Fighters 15. Ash being this strong, however, may more than likely be because he is being amped by the powers of the Sacred Treasures that he's stolen up to this point, considering that he tells Elizabeth he isn't the person he used to be and now has new powers. But without these amps, he'd still be just behind Kyo, give or take, since he, unlike K-Dash, is durable enough to utilize the flames of someone like Iori. He also believes Shun'ei still isn't ready for opponents on his skill level, and he is once again still a rival to Elizabeth, whose talents are not too far behind that of the Sacred Treasures. But that's about all I really have to say regarding the topic today. I have other fighting game content on my channel you may be interested in, like my recent video comparing cameos from Mortal Kombat 1 to strikers from the King of Fighters 2000, likewise in celebration of the King of Fighters 30th anniversary, but be sure to subscribe to be notified of what I get up to in the future, such as when I upload or stream. Like the video to support both the channel and myself, as well as let me know that this is the type of content you want to see. Comment down below if I missed anything or with any suggestions you may have for the future. Thank you all for watching, and have a blessed day.
Let it roll!